Hey everybody, it's my weekly focus on Northwest hard rock and metal bands, um, a lot of which we featured in our book Rusted Metal. It's a reference guide on the scene. Um, so to start off, um, first band is one I saw a handful of times in Portland. It was one of my favorites. Was Gargoyle, um, kind of a power metal band. It's a little hype sticker, which is kind of cool there. It's an original pressing from New Renaissance Records. Put that out in '88. Um, Four-piece at the time of the record. We called them, a lot of people called them either Portland's Iron Maiden or Queensryche, so that would give you an idea of the type of music they did, soaring vocals and, um, great lead guitar work and great drumming and just a really tight band and a really good live. And they kind of went through couple different lineup changes a little later on after the record. The singer Tim Lackman, he brought his younger brother Pat into the band on a second guitar, and they had a little bit of uh, changeover to where they ended up as a five-piece. Pat, of course, was known for going on to be in Rob Halford's solo band and Damageplan with the Abbott brothers, Vinny and Dimebag from Pantera. Um, he was the singer of the band, actually, of that one. Played guitar too, though, I think. And then they did a little reissue of it not too long ago, which was pretty cool. And they did a really cool double gatefold 2 LP with the original record and a whole um, extra album of demos and live stuff, which is really neat that it's unreleased. And some pretty cool liner notes that yours truly actually wrote. I was pretty honored for these guys to ask me to do that. I interviewed Dave Kendall for Rusted Metal, and the guys. So I interviewed all of them, all four members for this release, and they also got William Howe from Metal Blade, kind of championed the guys back then and helped them try to get a deal when they went down to California for a while. Um, so that's kind of cool. And then I got a CD reissue too that was signed by all four guys, which was pretty cool. Thanks, Doug Smith. And yeah, so like I said, those guys are great. Got some interest in doing a reunion, so here's hoping that might happen at some point. Um, Next band is guys I never actually got to see because I started seeing shows a little like in '86, and these guys were already unfortunately kind of split up after they moved to California for a little bit. But they had a um, self-titled EP, 5-song EP that originally came out on Axe Killer. I don't have the original release anymore. I had one copy and that I never found. Unfortunately, long sold. But they had a kind of a weird situation where um, they had a bass player that sang first, and then they kind of switched it out where Tim Proctor joined the band, and then they got a guy named Mike Podrabo on vocals. So it was very much like a Judas Priest, Iron Maiden sort of influence band with a five-piece with two twin lead guitars. And they did a demo tape, which this is a reissue of it, but this was the original. '84, I think, was when they did this demo tape. They played a lot of shows with Wild Dogs and Pirate and Sabotage and a lot of the local bands, kind of in that first '80s wave of metal, and got a record deal with Axe Killer. But unfortunately, they had fired Mike on vocals, trying to get a singer that has a little higher range. And although Mike's a really good singer, he's back fronting the band since they reunited. He's the only original member at this point as a constant. So, and he sounds really good. Um, and so they ended up having two other singers sing on two of the tracks. So it's kind of a weird situation. You don't see a whole lot where there's more than one singer on release, but surprisingly, it all sounds really consistent, even though there's three different guys singing. So that's kind of interesting. And this was a real popular collectible that's been reissued. And there's a CD reissue. And at one point, the second issue of this, a second release of this, they kind of modified it, added Mike's picture to it, which is pretty um, well deserved, and added a bonus demo, which was unreleased, which was pretty cool. Actually ended up interviewing Mike about his previous band Harlot for Rusted Metal, and two of the Glacier guys, Sam Easley, who sadly passed away before the reissue came out, and drummer Lauren Bates, both for Rusted Metal. So that was a lot of fun to hang out with those guys. And they've done new stuff. This was the first new record they released back in 2020, 2019, something like that. Forget now. But this has 3 original demos they never released, where Tim Procker, the bassist, the original bassist, and Lauren Bates, the original drummer, actually joins in the studio playing on these songs, guesting on them. Album's really good. They just recorded a new, there's like a special bonus limited sound page that came with, I think it was the box set. It's an unreleased song. It's only on this one. And then most recently, they recorded a couple new longer songs that they did a little cassette and EP, 7-inch EP, colored vinyl, yellow and blue, and also a CD, Spears of the Empire and Word of the Will. Pretty cool. A little heavier than the last thing's kind of neat. And then let's see what's next. Oh, just wanted to mention, Glacier guys were kind enough to let us use a track on our first Northwest Metalworks compilation, Volume 1, which is a track from the EP that Mike sings on. We did a little signing at Music Millennium at the time this came out in 2016, and had some different guys from different bands show up and sign them. So that was kind of cool. Got a couple signed test pressings left. If anybody wants to purchase one of those, you can drop me a line. So let's see. So this band was kind of cool. A hard rock band from the 70s called Grand Theft. They were like kind of a goof band. Like they were featured 3 guys from Bluebird, which was a Seattle pop band. And they did this kind of as a joke, where they said, oh, we could do this hard rock stuff too. And so they made up this whole fake thing and self-released an LP, which is just a plain sleeved one with a little black label, like in '74. And it's pretty rare. This collects that album and some unreleased stuff that they'd recorded after that, but it sounds like really good, like Led Zeppelin meets Grand Funk. So definitely look for the EP, or the CD is a little easier to find. I believe the Grand Theft guys actually released the CD too, that had the unreleased stuff that was going to be for a second album that never happened. So that's pretty cool. These guys, of course, are pretty legendary now. Green River, one of the sort of proto grunge bands, featuring members of Mudhoney and Mother Love Bone and Pearl Jam. First record was in '84, I believe, and they kind of definitely fused punk and like early, old school like Sabbath and early metal like that, Sabbath and Zeppelin, kind of early Aerosmith with like Sonics and Stooges and stuff. And singer Mudhoney, Mark Harm, was the singer for Green River. I think they did a couple albums and single and an EP, and by the time the last one came out on Sub Pop, they were already split up off into a couple different lineups, as I said, of first Mother Love Bone, and then Jeff Ament and Stone did Pearl Jam after that, and then Steve Turner and Mark Arm for Mudhoney. So this band is pretty cool. I like these guys a lot. Grunt Truck, very underrated band from the so-called grunge. They just recently did this colored vinyl Record Store Day double LP reissue, which is pretty cool. It's kind of neat. Pull it out. If I can get one out, I'll show what it looks like. It's like a cool swirl orange kind of yellow red swirl vinyl. That's pretty neat. These sold out like the first day and can't find them now. So glad I got one. Um, so yeah, so those guys are pretty cool. Couple albums on Roadrunner featured initially Ben McMillan, the singer, and Norman Scott, the drummer from Skin Yard, and Tommy Niemeyer from The Accused, Tim Paul on bass from Final Warning, I talked about the last episode. So they did a couple records, kind of split up, got back together. They did this EP, which was Ben McMillan and Tom, with also Alex Seibold and Josh Cinder from his former bandmates from Accused. And then they did one more unreleased record that finally came out a couple years back, which I haven't picked up yet. I think it's like a gray vinyl that they did, was kind of cool. Let's see, what else do I got? A couple non-metal bands that are pretty cool. Gas Huffer, these guys are pretty cool. Kind of a garage punk. Tom Price from the U-Men band, Post U-Men. This one was one of the three they, God, I get a lot of reflection, did on Epitaph, which was Brett Gervitz's label, the guitarist from Bad Religion, and they released Bad Religion and Offspring and NoFX and a bunch of bands on that label. And then these guys are great, Girl Trouble. This is a reissue of their first record that Calvin Johnson put out on his K Records label. Originally it was released on Sub Pop when it came out back in 88 or 89. 88, yeah. So they're pretty fun garage rock band, very 60s, kind of, love the Sonics and Wailers, a lot of that. They had some pretty fun covers too, like they did the Banana Splits, Let's Go Find a Cave, which was pretty cool. Then a few other mentions was Portland metal band was pretty cool, Gunshy. Thomas Anderson was a guitarist. He did a magazine called Rattle and Shake, a few issues with him and his sister put it out, and you'd always see his guitar lessons ads in the back of them and stuff. And then let's see, what else do I got? So I don't have anything from Tim's band Gypsy Rose, but there's a flyer of their first show with Heir Apparent and Bret Hartman's Leather Sponge, which was a fun kind of sort of Spinal Tap band, and he put on this show. Gypsy Rose was Tim Branham from Juvenile and Sentence on vocals, Brock Grau from Lipstick on guitar, and Phase also he was in. Mike Ursama that was in Phase as well on drums, and first bassist from Alice in Chains, Mike Starr on bass, pre Alice in Chains. They do have some demos. Tim is working on some of those, and we might possibly put that out at some point if those end up getting done. A couple other bands to mention would be Gangland was Rich Tresner from Raygun. They had like a demo that they at least put out. It was John Tritek from Sentinel on guitar and Todd Stotts from Reverend and a few other bands on drums. Let's see, who else do we have? Ground Zero was a cool band with Randy Rampage from DOA and Annihilator was in the band at one point. Let's see, who else was in there? Guitars from DOA was in there. A few different guys. Steve Corchain from Cradle. They had a couple things they put out. Like an EP, I think, or something, and a demo tape. Let's see, who else did we have? Goliath was kind of a fun one I'm going to mention. Was a cover band from the 70s that did a bunch of hard rock covers of Zeppelin and Jethro Tull and things like that, UFO. And that was Kenny Deans from the Heats, the drummer from the Heats. That was his band pre the Heats. So he kind of went from a hard rock band that the Unicam managed and booked at a lot of dances and things. And then let's see, Grand Vision, that was Jeffrey Bond's band from from Dirty Rhythm pre that. Had Larry Haynes and Fred Volz from Tokyo. Post Tokyo, they were in that. Let's see, who else do we have? I might throw a mention out for. I can't think of anybody else. I'm sure I forgot somebody. There's always a few more in there. So yeah, that's it. Letter G. Next week's going to be letter H, as well as we're going to be dropping the pre-order for our next Northwest Metalworks record, which is a compilation. And I suppose I can drop a few names. We've got tracks from Pirate. We actually have 6 Oregon bands on this one. Pirate, Roulette, Mistress, Ex-Piracy, and Tokyo. And I think I'm forgetting somebody else. And then for Washington, we got Rottweiler, Coven, couple other bands that I'm forgetting. And we even have an Idaho band, Child's Play. So that'll give you a taste of it at least. But yeah, look for that next week. We're going to drop pre-orders for that finally. We're just waiting on a couple things to be, things are in production. We're just trying to figure out a final track order on a record and have a cover design we could drop with it so people could see that too. So, all right, everybody. Thanks as always for your support and your interest in Northwest Metal, hard rock, and all things rock. And we shall see you next week.